Careful on the ice, sweetie.
Canis dirus, extinct approximately 9.5 thousand years ago. Our pack consists of 7 adults and
Welcome. Here is your map for the park today. Enjoy your visit.
That's a different strategy than the cooperative hunting of gray wolves. More opportunistic, more competitive. What you see in their social structure here reflects that.
Welcome to Pleistocene Park, 12 square kilometers of recreated Ice Age biome. Every animal you'll meet today
You're now entering the mammoth steppe habitat. Temperature outside is -4 Celsius. Keep your eyes on the horizon.
Please stay on the designated paths.
Mom, look! What is that?
Watch the second-rank female. She's testing the boundary of the space around the main cache. Notice Asher's response, that single look.
Everything you'll see today is the result of 22 years of research. The animals are not on display, they're living their lives. We're simply invited to observe.
Look at him go with the ice block.
Yes, and the others are enjoying the fresh hay we put out.
And now, observe closely. You can see the sheer power in his paws and the subtle deflection of the glass under his weight.
I'll have the bison burger, please.
Did you see the size of that coffee?
Wait, look outside.
Is that real?
It's a mammoth.
That's why we built the tunnels.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ice Age.
The two species would have been in direct competition for large prey at carcass sites. The fossil record at La Brea shows both species in enormous...
This is the mammoth steppe enclosure, between 4.2 square kilometers of recreated late Pleistocene grassland.
Dire wolves appear to have been active across the full dial cycle, which may be part of why their pack dynamics are so elaborate.
What's remarkable is that the social behavior we're documenting here is consistent with isotope evidence from La Brea specimens about their ranging and pack stability. The woolly mammoth, Mammuthus primigenius, was the most widespread large land mammal of the Pleistocene. Adults like
That is the herd's dominant male. We call him Urus. He's 47 years old.
At least 3,600 individual dire wolves have been recovered from the La Brea tar pits. They were one of the most successful large... At least 3,600 individual dire wolves have been recovered from the La Brea tar pits. They were one of the most successful large...
The tracking shows they are heading toward the northern fence line.
Hold on, the white count on 404 just doubled. That means the immunization worked.
She's about to roll. This is a dust bathing behavior adapted to snow, and it helps maintain coat condition and is also social bonding when other herd members join in.
First winter. Everything is still a surprise.
Before you see them, I want you to understand the antlers. Because nothing prepares you for the antlers.
They average between 16 and 19 kilometers of movement per day, and this habitat is designed to accommodate natural ranging behavior.
The birch line parts and the first Megaloceros becomes visible. Nothing prepares you for the antlers.
All right, folks, welcome aboard the observation tram. Please settle in as we join the herd.
This is the Megaloceros giganteus, often known as the Irish elk. Standing 2 meters at the shoulder, this magnificent others.
Right now, I'm tracking individual caloric intake estimates based on foraging duration and plant biomass surveys.
In winter, Megaloceros relied heavily on browse. The antler management you're seeing, navigating through trees.
In the wild, mammoth herds would shelter in topographic depressions on windy nights. Our habitat includes
She's heard something, the feeding vehicle. She processed that motor sound at 400 meters.
Everything you saw today, the family bonds, the calf's curiosity, the old bull's patience, none of that is staged.
Next zone is the predator ridge. We suggest visiting the observation deck first.
That's territorial assertion. The second male is approaching from the east side of the habitat. The dominant male is giving him fair warning before any physical communication becomes necessary.
During non-rut seasons, mature male cervids generally prefer to resolve hierarchy through display rather than contact.
Welcome to the Smilodon habitat, home to 3 individuals from our established Fatalis breeding group. Smilodon fatalis was not actually a tiger.
At peak summer growth, the antlers can grow approximately 2.5 centimeters per day. That's the fastest tissue growth of any known mammal.
Upper left, the flat rock behind the second conifer cluster.
Smilodon fatalis had canines that grew to approximately 28 centimeters, far too large for biting through bone in the way modern lions do. He learned that posture in his first year. Problem solving.
There were hundreds of thousands of them, once. From Ireland to Siberia.
The stalk begins. A female wolf named Vega descending from the granite shelf with an economy of movement that makes her size seem impossible.
I keep thinking I'm gonna stop being surprised.
That's a healthy interaction. The prey species maintain fitness. The predator maintains her hunting cognition.
He's already showing the bone density markers in his forehead that predict a large rack. We think he's going to be exceptional.
As you can see, Vega tracks movement inside the tunnel with the frank interest of a hunter.
Look at those teeth.
Quite the sight at eye level.
The difference between a fossil and a living animal is not anatomical, it's time. We change the time.
She's not stressed or agitated, and this is investigative behavior. Our Smilodons have been habituated to glass tunnel proximity.
Next zone is the short-faced bear habitat. We suggest visiting the observation deck first and getting your bearings before descending to ground level. She does that. She knows exactly what she's doing.
When you looked at those antlers today, you were having an experience that human beings have been having for 50,000 years.
We believe Smilodon may have been a social hunter. The fossil record shows individuals with healed major injuries.
The Arctodicynus enclosure uses our highest rated containment infrastructure. This is not for dramatic effect. The short-faced bear is simple.
Orion, step forward onto the pressure plate.
Subject responds well to verbal cues. Weight distribution appears normal.
That's Kodiak. He's our male, 12 years old, full adult. Current mass is just under 950 kilograms. Standing height.
The instinctive hush of the primate brain encountering something that activates circuits older than language. Because Arctodicynus
Arctos had several key anatomical features that made it unique among bears. The long limbs allowed a galloping gait unusual in ursids.
She's assessing. Right now, she's reading the habitat with her nose. She can smell the horses from here.
She's after roots and invertebrates. Despite their predatory anatomy, short-faced bears appear to have been significantly omnivorous, based
He's curious, he finds there's interesting novel stimuli, notice posture, no stress indicators.
He does this. He's checking the tree line. He'll come back down in a moment. 30 years of working with large ursids, and that still does something to me every time.
The second feeding of the afternoon is the park's most operationally complex. The feeding protocol requiring a veal.
What we're finding is that the long limb gallop is real. When Kodiak accelerates, he uses a bounding gait that no modern bear uses.
She's gonna be something.
That's why the panel is placed there, at the exit, not the entrance.
The observatory deck offers an unparalleled view of the Arctodus habitat, where the massive short-faced bears roam their territory.
The staff areas are reassuringly ordinary, the infrastructure of competence made visible in the mundane details.
We always allow a few extra minutes at this zone for visitors to process. It's consistent feedback. The short-faced bear takes longer.
Arctodicynus was the dominant predator of Pleistocene North America by body mass. Everything else in this park, the Smilodon, the
Everyone arrives expecting something slow. They leave reconsidering the entire category of slow.
The first sight of a Megatherium in this habitat is always disorienting, because the initial impression is not of an
Megatherium americanum, the giant ground sloth. Not closely related to modern tree sloths despite the name, a different evolutionary lineage entirely.
The tail base is actually the widest point of their body, massively built to support exactly this posture.
He smelled food. He does this. It's a trained visitor area, food smells. He's not, but is.
Oh, look at that. He's heading back already. Gentle. What a gentle giant.
The tail contributes more to propulsion than we predicted, and it functions almost like a fifth limb during slow locomotion.
We maintain a 10 degrees Celsius differential from the adjacent cold zones, 14 to 16 degrees in the sloth habitat.
Dusk in the giant ground sloth habitat brings a behavioral shift the guide calls the settling sequence.
All of that is an ecological process that stopped when his species stopped. We're watching it restart, one dig at a time. The woolly rhinoceros, Coelodonta antiquitatis, is the most recently extinct of our park's megafauna, with some populations
longer and more flattened side to side than modern rhinos, which has led to theories about its use as a snowplow for uncovering vegetation in winter.
There it is. That behavior is in the cave paintings.
Rhinos use olfactory communication extensively. Dung middens are social bulletin boards communicating identity, reproductive status, and health.
That's a healthy interaction. That's two animals that know the rules. He does this 2 or 3 times a week. We call it the Ural Express. Nobody knows exactly why. He just runs because he can.
The hair structure under the microscope is identical. Every feature we can examine, the medulla, the cortex, the scale pattern.
The food court adjacent to the woolly rhinoceros zone is the park's warmest indoor visitor space, a design choice.
He does this every time, every single snowfall.
Those paintings are between 30 and 20,000 years old. The painters saw exactly what you saw today. They just didn't have glass tunnels.
The dorsal mane, the ear shape, the color banding on the coat, all of it exactly matches.
Wow.
Every one of our animals matches.
Yeah.
This is when they're most active. The dawn window in the Pleistocene steppe was prime foraging time. They haven't lost that.
Overnight vitals look stable for both rhinos. We can proceed with the scheduled enrichment.
The genetics data suggests a sharp decline in diversity pre-Younger Dryas.
Correlating with the pathologies seen in the bone analysis from the same period. It saw the world change and adapted, and eventually couldn't adapt far enough. The cave painters who depict
now arriving, the express line to the Cretaceous zone.
The cave lion habitat is straight ahead, sir.
Cave lion coloration in the fossil record appears lighter than modern lions, possibly an adaptation to northern environments, where
Pantherospelea was large, on average slightly larger than an African lion, with some populations approaching modern tigers.
The pride of Barbary lions visible from the observation platform consists of 3 adult females, 1 young adult male, and 2 subadults.
She's watching your movement patterns. She does this with every new group. She's deciding what kind of thing you are.
African lions sleep 16 to 20 hours a day. We assume cave lions had similar metabolic strategies.
the acoustic range of cave lion vocalizations appears lower than modern lions. What you just heard is consistent.
Both female.
When the dominant female decides they're old enough to be embarrassing, the play will decrease.
Not yet.
The cave lion existed in an environment where prey species were often much larger than anything modern lions routinely tackle.
You are now being told, in the oldest language on the continent, who lives here.
She always does this. Every group, she's deciding.
The spotted juvenile coat is interesting. Adult cave lions showed no spotting based in fossil evidence, but the cubs...
What you're looking at from this ridge is essentially the Pleistocene food web made physical. The predator zone to your left, the prey species zone to your right.
The Chauvet cave artist who drew these lions 32,000 years ago was watching the same animal.
The guide calls this the pride map, a clear social geography. The dominant female holds the center.
The fundamental frequency is lower in Panthera spelaea, just as predicted from the skull morphology.
Right.
But the harmonic structure is more complex than we predicted.
Yeah.
See you. See you tomorrow.
These are the largest population in any exhibit in the park. About 22 individuals fled because horses were herding animals and their behavior.
Equus ferus was the wild horse of the Pleistocene, ancestral to the domesticated horse and the modern Przewalski's horse, which is its closest living relative.
Horses are among the most temporally precise animals we work with. They begin this movement within minutes of the same time every evening.
Wild horse habitat use is not random, Sat. Every individual has preferred areas that reflect their social position and history.
What we're finding is that behaviors lost from domestic horse populations over thousands of years of domestication.
Since. We assess each individual weekly from elevated observation, no contact with the herd during these assessments.
In the Pleistocene, the horse and the steppe bison coexisted across the entire Eurasian steppe. They grazed the same grasslands.
That's a textbook rival male challenge sequence. No contact, all display. The result is clear and accepted.
The Lascaux cave painters 16,000 years ago depicted horses with the same morphology, the heavy head.
Watch how the stallion approaches first, and how every other animal's willingness to investigate is calibrated against his reaction.
The ancestor of both the European wisent and the American bison. The horn span is the key morphological difference.
Steppe bison appear in more Paleolithic cave art than any other large mammal. The famous Altamira and Lascaux cave paintings feature them prominently.
The knock-on effects of 12 large bison on grassland structure are measurable in this habitat within a single growing season.
That was resolved in one exchange. They're not trying to hurt each other, they're establishing sequence of access.
The differential coat development between the front and rear of the body is functionally significant. The massive four-quarter insulation.
The Altamira cave paintings were made between 21,000 and 14,000 years ago. The steppe bison is the dominant subject.
He does this every time. He's not aggressive toward the vehicle, but he's making clear that access to his herd space is The archaeological record of human-bison interaction spans hundreds of thousands of years on 2 continents. They were here first. We're glad to have them back.
People always expect camels to be slower than they are. They're not.
Camelops hesternus, meaning camel of yesterday in Greek, evolved in North America and spread to Asia across the Bering Land Bridge.
They have excellent spatial memory for food sites. That's a core survival trait when your environment is variable and resources are patchy.
It's produced by a specialized inflatable palareticulum. They can sleep standing, but they prefer ground rest. It takes about 45 seconds to get all the way down. It's worth watching the whole thing.
The foot pad structure on camelops appears adapted to both sandy and firm terrain. The North American...
The fossil isotope record tells us Camelops was feeding in a mixed C3 and C4 plant environment, combining browse and grass. The IntelliZone is the last of the warm environment habitats. After this, you'll be returning to the colder northern zones for the remaining animals.
Camelops hesternus went extinct in North America approximately 10,000 years ago, the same extinction event that took the horses, the mammoths, the ground sloths. Before you ask, yes, it's a pig. Technically.
Entelodons are the largest members of the Entelodon family, sometimes called
Visible from the median fully confirms that pig.
That spacing is maintained to within about 30 centimeters consistently. It communicates mutual tolerance without friendship.
Park staff vehicle entering the habitat maintenance corridor on the far side. She heard the door. She's investigative, not alarmed. She'll stop at the fence line.
The bite force of an adult Entelodon is estimated at approximately 4,000 newtons. For compared hyena, what we're seeing here is potentially the first direct observation of Entelodon facial architecture in development. We're documenting everything.
She's currently working on what we call a level 4 spatial memory task, retrieving a food reward from one of 16 possible locations based on a visual cue.
They're complicated. Their relationship is the most behaviorally complex pair bond in the park. More interesting in some ways than the wolves.
The fact that we don't have a living representative is one of the bigger gaps in the world's megafauna roster. We're doing something about that here.
Castroides ohioensis, the giant beaver, was the largest rodent in North America until its extinction approximately 10,000.
The water in the habitat is maintained at 6 degrees Celsius, cold enough to be realistic for a boreal wetland.
The pair of giant beavers in this habitat maintain a complex territory based around the pond's richest aquatic.
He does the shakeout every time. Every single time.
Chances. The incisor morphology is different from modern beavers in ways that suggest a herbivorous aquatic diet rather than
It's Castroides. Castroides was not a dam builder, but it was an ecosystem engineer in its feeding patterns, its
It is a bird. It is 2.5 meters tall and weighs approximately 150 kilograms, and it is technically a bird.
The first view of Titanus walleri in full daylight does something very specific to the calibration of scale.
Titanus waller appears to have been a cursorial predator, a running hunter adapted to open grassland pursuit.
The Sabertooth Tiger will see birds. The two terrible tamed in a system of habitat zones.
She's very aware of your movement. Birds have significantly better visual acuity than mammals, and she can resolve detail at this.
That strike is estimated at a force of approximately 700 newtons. For reference, a typical human punch is around 250.
Current estimates based on limb proportions suggest Titanus could sustain pursuit speeds comparable to a modern ostrich, around
pig. The beak strike killing method of Titanus is functionally parallel to the canine bite killing method of Smilodon. Both are precision instruments.
10,000 years ago, something like her was the last large predator standing at the end of the Pleistocene in South America.
Deinosuchus hatchery. The name means terrible crocodile. It is not hyperbole. She's not displaying aggression. This is thermoregulation, heat exchange through the oral mucosa. She'll hold this position for 20 to 40 minutes. This is normal. The water opacity is ecologically appropriate and also from an experiential standpoint intentional. You cannot always see D1 when she's submerged.
She's in there. The depth sensor system shows her at 3.2 meters, currently stationary. She will reemerge within the...
She moves at approximately 0.3 meters per second in water. You're watching the largest voluntary locomotion event in the history of vertebrate life.
An 8-meter crocodilian requires approximately 300 kilograms of food per week. The logistics...
Maracinix trumani, the American cheetah, evolved in North America and is the probable ancestor of the pronghorn's extraordinary speed. Even at rest, they have a different quality than the felids in adjacent habitats, a coiled readiness, a lightness. Notice the deceleration. It takes her about 60 meters to fully stop from maximum speed. She overshoots the lure and...
He's watching for movement. Cheetahs are visual hunters. They identify prey by movement, engage the pursuit by sight.
That was approximately 90 meters. Duration, about 3 seconds. He wasn't really trying. The dorsoventral spine flexion amplitude we're measuring is approximately 40% greater than published values for African.
That's not a response to us, that's a response to the wind. They do that. It's efficient.
Muskox are not extinct with weight. They're one of the few Pleistocene megafauna to survive into the present, existing in Arctic Canada and Greenland.
The underfur called kiviute is one of the finest natural insulating materials known. The combination
That was resolved in one exchange. Most interactions at this intensity are single contact. They're not trying to hurt each other, May. They're establishing sequence of access.
When we introduced simulated predator stimuli, recorded cave lion vocalizations played at habitat edge speakers.
Standing in front of this herd, you're looking at an animal that was here before and is still here. That's rare. That's worth noting.
Gigantopithecus blacki is not a predator. It is the largest primate that ever lived. An adult male may have laid 270 kilograms. He's looking at you, he sees you. He is making a judgment. That approach, pause, orient sequence the subadult just did, that's rank deference. He's announcing that he's coming closer and asking permission. Understimulation in great apes causes significant welfare problems. We spend as much time on enrichment design as on anything else in this zone.
She does this with me every day. I've spent 20 years working with great apes, and I thought I understood the experience recognized by a non-human primate.
Homotherium latidans, the scimitar cat, is often confused with Smilodon in popular literature, but they were ecologically different animals.
That profile was functional. The longer forelimbs elevate the front of the body for a distinctive visual display posture that
Homotherium appears from fossil evidence to have been a specialist predator of juvenile mammoths, a remarkable niche when you consider the risk involved. The mammoth population across the fence has never encountered a Homotherium, but something in their biology knows what this sound means.
Titanoboa cerehonensis, Paleocene Colombia, approximately 60 million ago. Adult specimen.
We are only seeing a fraction of its leg, yet the impact on the environment confirms its colossal size.
Titanoboa's ecology was almost certainly aquatic or semi-aquatic. The warm equatorial swamps of Paleocene Colombia.
We don't want the transition to feel like a reset. Each zone is meant to be processed completely before the next begins.
She moves at approximately 0.3 meters per second in water. You're watching the largest voluntary...
Post-soak thermoregulation. She'll be still for 40 minutes to 2 hours. Don't mistake stillness for sleep.
The thermal mass at this body size means D1's core temperature changes much more slowly than her surface temperature.
60 million years ago, a snake 13 meters long lived in the tropical forests of what is now Colombia. It was the apex predator of its ecosystem.
Welcome to the connecting walkway to Zone 3. The Blue Line tram is now boarding for the observatory.
Attention visitors, the last express tram to the city.
The cooling late afternoon air provides extraordinary clarity. Below, the mammoths.
The fading light triggers behavioral changes. The cave lions begin their territorial vocalizations, and the dire wolves start their pack howl sequences.
I've been asked many times whether what we do here is right, whether these animals should be here, whether the world has changed too much.